Ronan O'Gara is with us this morning. Ronan, good morning to you. How you doing?
Hi, Jar. How are you?
This is squeaky bum time for a lot of people who are on the bubble of the squad, and we're all obviously in the media obsessed with that. We'll talk about John Cooney in a minute, but the rest of the squad who are fairly certain that they're going to be playing an important part of the game, what are they doing at the moment to make sure that their game plan is varied and different, and they're obviously not getting distracted by the cuts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think everyone's mindset is very different depending on what stage of your career at or where you are in the pecking order. I think a lot of guys wouldn't be concerned by selection, so it really doesn't raise its head for them. There's a few guys, obviously, I'd say very few, Jar, who are in limbo in terms of the fact of, do they know they're on the plane or not? Is there more choice than previous campaigns? Yes, there is. And is there far more depth and competition for places? There is, but there are more international games, more opportunities. So I would say at this stage, someone like Jean Klein is probably in an exceptional circumstance becoming available at the last moment. I would say he probably doesn't know where he stands, and the coaches may not know where they are with him either. But I would say 28, 29 are on board at this stage, I would think.
For those 28, 29, it's about making sure that they're obviously fit and all the conditioning. And I kind of assume that that's going to be fine. It's about form and about making sure that they're as confident as they can be in...
Yeah, it is, exactly. And yeah, sorry to go back to your first question, I didn't even answer it. I think I only saw highlights of the game, so I need to actually look at it in a bit of detail. But I believe that Ireland didn't box kick, which is obviously very different and very interesting, and it'll be fascinating to see how that goes, because that's a massive tactical shift. So in that regard, I think there obviously have been a lot of chats off the pitch and growing their game, and there seems to be some area that they're exploring. Whether it comes back in against England and Wales, we have to wait to see. But I suppose to probably gonna go away from one of your key weapons, I would like to think it's interesting.
Can we talk about that a little bit then? Because these are the games where you can try stuff out, right? There's definitely an ability to bed in to install new game plans that you would assume the box kick is there ready to be polished off for specific moments or against certain teams, and maybe when certain referees are going to referee it in a certain way as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's at this stage it's in their DNA. I think they know exactly what they need to do. But as you made the point, I think they are trying other things, which, to be fair, very different, I suppose, pressure levels on them. So in that regard, they're probably looking at just keeping the ball in hand to exit in a World Cup semi-final or quarter-final, or against Scotland. I would presume that they will go to the box kick, because it is an effective way of exiting. I think it's brilliant that it splits the opinion of so many people. So many people aren't a fan of it. Other people see its value, but it always causes great debate in Irish rugby, I think.
That's the thing. I mean, it's the answer when it comes to these really divisive things is often somewhere in the middle. If you are coming down the home stretch, is there a similar tactic that you would employ against New Zealand or against South Africa on this front, on the box kicking front? Is he thinking about a quarter-final here?
Yeah, I would probably have, I suppose, strong views, and I think the reason you box kick is get the ball back. I wouldn't be a fan of box kicking to put the other team under pressure. I think the key requirement when you box kick is you get the ball back, and that's why you do it. Other coaches would have different philosophies in terms of kicking it to turn them or kick them to pressurise them. You go back a few years, and I think Wales were a good exponent of the fact that Mike Phillips could kick the ball 50 or 60 yards. So Stephen Jones didn't really kick a lot from 10. They'd kind of have a line out and kind of a down and give, and his capacity, I suppose, to clear the line out and hit it 60 metres is a big asset to a team, because otherwise you have to pass it back 9 to 10 on, and it goes, that's minus 10, and if you kick it 50 you have a 40 metres gain. So in terms of, I suppose, the capacity of a 9 to do that, and Conor has the spectrum to do that at 9 because of his levers. But that's a different policy again. That's kind of turning them and trying to get grass. The actual box kick or kick into contest has been hugely successful for Ireland, but England are working hard on it. Wales are working hard on it. I would think the Northern Hemisphere teams are better than the Southern Hemisphere tiers in the air, with the potential exception of South Africa.
Because we think about 2015 so often and what happened to the Irish team in terms of injuries, and I do wonder if sometimes squad depth is not just about the players that you have, but about the ability to slot players in and be able to execute the game plan to the best of your ability. And it does seem that if Ireland want to execute the box kicking game to the best of their ability, they need Conor Murray to be the scrum half. There isn't another scrum half who can do it as well, and I wonder if that's in Joe Schmidt's thinking right now.
Yeah, I think it is. I would think it is, but I think you need variety too in your kicking game. I think that's a good point. I think if you're box kicking a lot, it means you're spending probably a lot of time in your half too, which is not ideal. So there are different ways of exiting. I think the most important point is where's the space and how do you get into the space? Do you run into the space or do you kick into the space? Sometimes in test rugby, far less space than club rugby, and they're better defenders on the pitch. So there has to be a little bit of a chink somewhere. It depends where you're going after it. And are the outside back seam where the space is, or is all the decision making be left to the 9 and 10, which is an interesting point.
How much of a difference in terms of our style of play do you expect from Ireland by the time we reach the World Cup, and by the time we reach the big games in the World Cup, or do we expect Ireland to play exactly as we always have done, just hope that the form comes back to the way it was a year ago?
No, I don't think so, Joe. I think you have to keep evolving, keep growing your game. I think you'll see it. You'll see it in the next 3 games more so. I actually thought, no disrespect to the Italian game, but it was never in your, you know what I mean, when you're forecasting the game, I don't think the result would ever be in doubt. While for the next 3 games, it's very difficult to call who will come out on top from a result point of view. And the great thing about these games is that you're not focused there's a more performance orientated focus than a result focus. So from that point of view, I think that you have to keep, if you stay where you are, you're going to get beaten. You have to keep evolving your game. There's new wrinkles coming in all the time. Coaches get good ideas. I think players get good ideas. And I think it's a great thing that, you know what I mean, that you have the capacity to change your game up to the captain's run. I wouldn't have a problem with that. That guys come with ideas and they say, what do you think of this? And you play it.
In terms of any kind of trends over the last 18 months or so, we had Gregor Paul on from New Zealand, who kind of said that it seems like there's been a more physical element coming into international rugby over the last 6 to 18 months. I wonder, is that true? Is that your experience of it as well? Is that just because that's how South Africa have always been, but they're actually playing a kind of bit more rugby at the moment under Razzie? What is the global trend at the moment after the Rugby Championships?
That's a good question, Gerald. I can't nail that for you. I'm not too sure. Has it become more physical? You know, there's some great athletes going at it. Space is limited. You got to win the gain line in that regard. I think the skill level is still really high. You look at the amount of points scored in the Australia-New Zealand game, and I don't think they're poor defenders on either side. I think the attack focus has come back. I think it was a great game to watch from a rugby point of view. Just I always felt that New Zealand were going to come back, and the opposite happened. So I know they were down to 14 men, but you have to give huge credit to Australia and their capacity to put 47 points on a New Zealand team. Mightn't have been their strongest team, but I think they will be absolutely raging to concede that amount of points. It's their highest, I think, points conceded ever, and that will, I think, really annoy them.
Does it annoy them to the point where it's just automatically a backlash, or does it annoy them to the point where they realise that there's significant frailties in the setup of the team at the moment?
I think there will be backlash, and also I agree with your second point. I don't think they probably know who their best 15 is, and that's why it's changed again, I suppose, substantially for this weekend selection for the return game in Auckland. So there are most definitely places up for grabs, not alone in their squad that will go to the World Cup, but also in their first 15. You look at the potential options they have, but at some stage they have to decide, well, what are we going into battle with? And I don't think they know that at the minute.
World Cups are weird in that they often take on their own dynamics. So it's not a disaster for a team as talented or a squad as talented as New Zealand to go into a World Cup a little bit uncertain, and if they discover it along the way. But certainly it would be unusual for a team to discover things along the way. I think that looked like we lost a connection there. That's what that screen of doom means. Mm-hmm. We'll get Ronan back and continue this conversation in a moment.
It's an interesting one if we are actually seeing kind of the changing face of rugby at the moment, or if this is just everybody being really experimental in the build-up to a Rugby World Cup, because naturally that's half of it. And from an Irish perspective, I would say that you'd be at least 70-80% sure that that's what it's all down to, the shift in play when it comes to a fairly basic element of Ireland's first go-to plan last weekend. It's not actually a philosophical change from Joe Schmidt. It is experimental. Although if the experiment works, that's what leads to philosophical change, isn't it? So I don't know.
That is how you road test things.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what actually happens over the next couple of weeks in terms of if they implement it against England. Like, granted, it's just a warm-up game, but it's the first time going up against them since the day that I think we all became very wide-eyed and we all realised how much work there was actually to do in the year 2019, that England game at the start of the year. So going back up against them, granted, I accept that it's going to be nothing similar to that. There is no importance on this game whatsoever. The only thing that matters is keeping everybody fit. But it'll be interesting to road test things against them.
Yeah, Owen's mentioned in England there, Ronan, and welcome back. Obviously, Eddie Jones decided that there was some benefit in picking his squad really early. Joe Schmidt's going to wait until, we're told in the papers today, until the first week of September. So why would you name a squad as early as Eddie Jones has done? What's the thinking behind that? What's the philosophy or psychology behind that?
I suppose the opportunities, which I suppose just growing the group over 2 weeks, getting them tighter, maybe I would say that the Irish team would be far more settled and far together more often than the English counterparts. It seems to have gone for a few, not wild cards, but a few interesting selections. Eddie Jones has gone first, so maybe he's just going, well, I'm backing you guys. Let's have a good time in camp. Let's build this thing to the best of our ability, and let's get on with it. These are you know who's going now. There's none of this. I'm not too sure, and my mindset isn't where it needed to be. You've got a good run in, so he's probably eliminating the opportunity for excuses.
Yeah, okay. That actually makes a lot of sense. In fairness, when you put it like that they haven't had that ability that the Irish setup have to whip everybody away to Carton House for long periods of time, or even just a weekend here and a weekend there, to make sure that kind of group has bonded over the last while. A couple of questions coming in. One about Joey Carbery. Obviously, he is injured, and we don't know yet how long that injury is going to be. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks, and 4 weeks is very different from 6 weeks, because that means you're fit for the start of the tournament. 6 weeks means you come back in the middle of it. Before that had happened, there was a question about whether or not we should be trying to fit Joey Carbery in the starting 15. What's your view on having essentially two out halves in the team? The talk was him playing at 12 as opposed to 15. We see what we see what the All Blacks are trying to do at the minute. So there's obviously a lot of teams who do want to put two of their best players in the team and try and shoehorn them in. Would Joey Carbery work at 12 for Ireland?
Yeah, I think he would. Yeah, I think he's just an exciting footballer. You look at that try he set up for Ireland at Scotland. Very few people in the world can do that, and I think that's him in a 7-second spurt. Obviously, powered the bus through two forwards. His capacity to keep his balance, to scan on the run, to pick out a pass and execute a pass. I think his kicking game has grown all the time. I think he's getting more confident, and you just know he has it, and he just enjoys playing rugby. It's a hard one, because would I start him there? I don't know, Ger. I think with the quality of centres we have in Ireland, I think and with the way modern defences are, I would be a massive fan of it from the 50th to the 80th minute. I think it just tiring defences. He just adds something that very few people have, and coupled with the fact with Johnny's passing game, I think it would be a really, really interesting attack ploy. But like before that, you know what I mean, you got to play north-south first. You can't go in with a game plan of east-west in the passing game. You got to have someone. But Joey has the capacity, I think, to play both and to step and offload and to create opportunities for other guys. But I think so do Bundyaki, so does Ringrose, so does Henshaw, so does Chris Farrell. You know, I think their skill set is, in my point of view, would be underappreciated by a lot of people.
Is there anything that, say, if Carbery has played a fullback and Sexton at 10, is there anything that they can learn from what the All Blacks are currently doing with Mo'unga and Barrett, obviously, at fullback?
They can, but it's a different mindset on. It's a different way. It's attack, all out attack. I think you build sometimes your team from the back, and with someone like Rob Kearney there, I think when you're on the pitch with him and you know someone breaks through the line, there's a 9 out of 10 chance he'll make that tackle. I think that adds a lot of value to players, fellow players when they're on the pitch with him. I wouldn't underappreciate that. There's nothing worse than in a tight game and there's a one-on-one and your 15 doesn't make it. You're like, oh no, that kills the team spirit.
We got to let you go, Ronan, but before we do, how's your own pre-season going? Must be wrapping up fairly soon.
Yeah, it is. We play a game tonight, and we play Agen tonight in a friendly. We played Claremont last week in a friendly. They're missing a lot of players with the World Cup, and we played them Sunday week in the first game of the championship. So yeah, it's full on. It's great. It's busy, really, really busy, but it's great doing something you love every day, you know.
Ronan, there was just one last thing I wanted to ask, because the Springboks have obviously come into the RSU quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. We may or may not meet them in the quarterfinal of a World Cup this year. Their attack coach, obviously, unfortunately, has had to step away from the camp this week, and some of the names you might be in the know about who some of the names may be linked to.
Why did he step away? What was that?
It was personal or medical reasons, unfortunately.
Okay,
It wasn't anything in the camp or anything like that. But obviously, Rassie Erasmus made an approach for Felix Jones last year. He rejected it, I presume, because he was happy with how things were going with Munster at the time. We don't know. It's all speculation about whether or not he might reapproach Felix Jones. I'm not sure if there's anybody in your head, or if going for Jones again from Erasmus's point of view would be a smart move.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant if Felix Jones, if he had imagine the experience now of going into that squad. I think it would be an unbelievable opportunity for Felix, and hopefully he does get the call, and hopefully from a family point of view, he can leave his baby for a few months. But I think the opportunities would represent a massive chance for him. And I think himself and Rassie are obviously very close. So if he's approached them, hopefully there's another approach to him, and this time it may be different, because it could really put Felix exactly where he wants to be.
Ronan, good stuff.
I'm not too sure of other coaches who's available. I don't know about other attack coaches.
Ronan, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
See you lads. Thanks. Good chat. See you boys. Thank you.
Au revoir.